Right, so let's talk about the rollout of the UK digital ID, which is now starting in Britain. But before I do that, I think I might quickly just refer to my Bible. Yes, I think I might go Revelations chapter 13, verses 16 and 17, which go, "They forced everyone to receive the mark on the hand. People great or small, rich or poor, had to receive the mark. They could not buy or sell anything unless they had the mark. The mark is the name of the beast, and the number is his name." Now, you have to remember that God was dictating this to John in the year 95 BC. So everything that God said back then might not have gotten written down entirely accurately. I'm sure God meant to say, you will have a mark on your handheld device rather than your hand.
So I imagine you were speaking from the King James translation, so it was also in the age of King James, the early 17th century. It was translated into English for us.
Yes,
from the Word of God.
Maybe in the ancient Hebrew, he does say you'll be forced to have a mark on your handheld device. I'm not sure, but yeah. So God, who's obviously quite a smart chap, has been warning us about this for over 2,000 years, and in the year of our Lord 2024, it has arrived. So this article from the Sunday Times. Yes, so basically their excuse here is that digital ID is going to be rolled out for pubs and clubs. Let me just pick out a few choice bits from the article. Pub goers will be able to use their smartphone to prove their age as part of plans introduced by the government for digital IDs. Ministers are preparing the change of law for customers to buy alcohol in shops and bars as they embrace the technical revolution, moving the state to more online functionality. People will be able to use this for everything from paying taxes to opening a bank account. All right.
Or being denied those things.
Well, yes. I think the bank account part is particularly key for my story here. Officials insist that digital verification will not be compulsory. People will still have a choice. Yes, for now, I'm sure they will. Yes, for now, yeah. Yes, for now. So, okay, so we got that. So the reason we need digital IDs is because otherwise people who are 17 might buy some alcohol. And that's why they've spent all the billions of pounds on putting together digital IDs. Okay, so that's
Even though we already have a number of versions of non-digital ID, like a passport or a driver's license or whatever.
Oh, well, you see, the thing is, you're raising a different issue there. Oh. But it's all right, they've got extra excuses. So let's look at what they have to say on this cheery, cartoon-illustrated video with music in the background from the government on why we need them.
It can be particularly difficult for people who don't have passports or driving licenses or have incomplete credit histories. So it's the job of digital government to join things up and make life easier for users. Our vision is to remove unnecessary complexity by developing one inclusive and accessible way for people to log in to all government services online. An easy way to prove their identity, just once, that also gives them control over who has access to their data and why.
So there you go.
Oh, it's for us. It's in aid of us. It's to make things easier.
You see, Bo, right. what happens is the elites, they wake up every morning just drenched in a cold sweat, worried that our lives are slightly inconvenient because we might have to enter a password twice if we're going to different websites. And they're desperately concerned about that, and they want to make our lives so much more convenient, but they've gone to the trouble of creating digital IDs so that we don't have to be inconvenienced.
Well, thank you, Sir Tony.
Yes, and also to make sure 17-year-olds don't buy a beer. So anyway, that's the excuse. I'm sure that's the. Oh no, actually, here look, we got another excuse here. This is why Tony Blair used to think we needed them.
Want to remove unnecessary barriers, not essential safeguards.
Oh. We got that doubled up.
Much more easily protected, so you can deal with a lot of the privacy and surveillance issues that worry people. But it's a natural evolution of the way that we're going to use technology in any event to transact daily life. And this COVID crisis gives an additional reason for doing that. Because, look, I could be wrong about this, but when I look at, for example, how you restart some businesses, how you restart international travel, I think people's disease status, for example, have they been tested? What is the result of that test? Have they had the disease? Do they have the disease? I think unless you're able to record some of this data in a way that people can use, it's going to be difficult to go back to anything like a near normal in things like transport.
Oh, right, okay. So
Dirty, lying son of a bitch. Filth. What filth?
well, you don't accept that argument that the third reason that we need digital IDs is so that you can prove that you haven't got a disease that is so asymptomatic that you wouldn't know if you didn't have. Yeah.
How on earth would the world go round? How did it work before we had things like digital IDs and things? How did anything ever work? I've wrote an article about this before, that Blair used this line of argument all the time that, look, it's just going to happen.
Yes.
It is inevitable. This is the future. We cannot question that. That is unquestionable. Yes. So let's just do it. Let's just go with it. He always uses that argument.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
The Millennium Dome is going to be built, so just get behind it. We are going to have to slaughter all our cattle, so let's just do it.
You are going to be locked in your homes until you accept my ID. Because, of course, he's wanted ID for a very long time.
Yeah, it's one of his babies.
Do you remember back in 2000 he tried to get the ID cards? And back then it was rejected because people was like, well, what's the point? I mean, why? Are you prepared to arrest old ladies who go to the shops and forget their ID card? No. Well, it's just going to be a pointless duplication of what we've already got then. So what's the point? So it was a very rare L for Tony Blair. He was like the one. Well, there's not many things he didn't get pushed through because he's such a skillful politician, but he got basically everything apart from ID, and that one loss has haunted him all these years. So during COVID, the logic was whatever I tried to explain, something like you wouldn't know if you've got this illness because it's asymptomatic, so the only way that you can know is if you've got a digital ID or something like that. Anyway, he's changed his tune now. He's now saying that the reason you need digital IDs is because you can deport illegal immigrants with them. Yeah, that's the logic. Because apparently nobody has ever deported anyone in the past before we had digital IDs.
Doesn't help them stopping them from coming in the first place, though.
Well, and presumably it wouldn't help us then immediately putting them on a bus and taking them to a 4-star hotel. But for some reason, if there's a digital ID in place, then we'll be able to deport them, whereas now we can't.
I know, it's just nonsense, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just obvious nonsense.
But the thing is, right, people are going to fall for that line of logic because what he does is he crafts his argument to whatever the issue of the day is, and he has noticed that people are a little bit miffed about the millions and millions of immigrations being rammed down our throat, and there are people who will hear that and go with it. In fact, I put a tweet up about that news that they're finally beginning the rollout of the digital IDs, and the first comment back was somebody who said to me, how did he put it? He said, yeah, this is long overdue and necessary. ID cards mean we can start deporting illegal aliens. I mean, yeah. But my point is, there are people who will swallow this. Anyway, so that's a couple. Well, what are we up to now? 3 excuses? No, that was 4 excuses from the UK as to why we need them. Let's look at what the excuses are in Australia. Next video, please.
Australians are happy to tap and go. Now the government wants them to tap and show.
What we want to do is make life easier, allow your credentials to be at your fingertips and keep your personal information safer.
A digital ID called Text
It'll
linked
make life
to MyGov,
easier, mate.
removing the need to hand over passports,
safer.
driver's licences, birth certificates for companies to store and too often lose to hackers.
The Optus incident, one of the first on a large scale, showed why we have to do things differently.
The information will be heavily encrypted, so no sensitive data is shared or stored, using a QR code and a simple tap to verify ID for hotel bookings, hiring cars, signing up for phones and more.
This is real.
Right, okay, so it's so that you can hire a car and book a hotel room more conveniently, and also because your data will be safe because they're going to heavily encrypt it and no one will have access to it, with the exception of the entirety of government who are holding all of that data.
Yeah. With the exception of the people that do have access to it.
Yes.
Right.
Which is like the government, which are the people that I'm most worried about. So anyway,
It's so obvious. It's so obvious what's going on, though, right? It's not.
Yes.
It's not that we're particularly cynical, or conspiracy theorist, or anything. It's obvious that it's to do with power.
well, I've got some more excuses. Let's just play this in the background for those who are watching. You'll miss it if you're listening. This is the European version of why, and they wheel out a whole bunch of excuses using people of dubious European ancestry to make their point.
It's easier. It's for you. It's in aid of you. You'll be able to do things online easier.
But they've got some nice graphics and a big EU flag. So apparently that's the next selection of reasons as to why we obviously need. The thing you've got to bear in mind with digital IDs is they are massively centralised. The government gets to decide what is or isn't truth, and of course they can make changes to that at any time they wish, with just a click of a button. If they decide that you're no longer a British citizen as you're flying back from the airport, they could make that change. If they want to make any other change, we've decided now that you don't own that house anymore. We just Well,
look how the CCP use their power.
Yes.
It's like we're going to decide basically what your credit rating is based on your actual day-to-day, almost minute-to-minute behaviour.
Yes.
And then you may or may not be able to get a mortgage or something on the back of that.
Well, I mean, they will give
all
total
sorts of
control.
things.
Total control.
Yeah.
I mean, they're saying it's optional. Of course, it won't be for very long. Before long, it'll be required to vote or access the internet and all of those things. But I thought let's dig a little bit deeper into who is requiring this. Now, best I can tell, it all kind of stems from the UN. So the UN have these what do they call them? Sustainable Development Goals. Or SDGCs, that they want every country to hit by, can you guess when? 2030. 2030, there's a whole bunch of things that every country in the world, because of course everyone's a member of the UN, has to achieve. And one of them, quite prominently actually, is digital IDs. So go and have a look through the presentation if you want to dig into the details of that. Don't have the time here. The World Economic Forum. They are, 100% behind this as well. And as Klaus Schwab says, that they will require individuals to be able to assert their identity in order to participate in the economy.
Oh, but the World Economic Forum is just a collection of like-minded businessmen.
Yes.
Why are you being so paranoid, Dan? Well, they're allowed to get together and talk about things, and they haven't got any real power.
Well, it's not just them, you see. I mean, I picked them. Most people have heard of them, but there's plenty more organisations as well. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is all over this as well. Good uns that they are. And actually, what I really want to focus on are the ones that I mentioned next, because I'm pretty sure this is where it's really all coming from. International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS.
Yeah, I know all about them.
Yeah. And the Financial Actions Task Force, or FATF. Now, a lot of people think that Klaus Schwab is at the top of the globalist order. Klaus Schwab is not at the top of the globalist order. He's up there. He's a high-ranking
the people
capo.
that are listen to him and know him.
Yeah.
At least.
Yes. But I'm telling you, the final bosses of globalism are the ones that I've just mentioned. It's the IMF, it's the BIS, and it's FATF. Those are the real top dogs of the whole globalist regime. Now,
can I just say something super quick about the Bank of International Settlements?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
a lot of people will have heard of the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, but even people that know a bit about that usually haven't heard of BIS.
Yeah,
it's in Switzerland, isn't it?
Sounds right. Yeah,
and they are, if anything, above.
Yes.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, if anything.
They're the big boss.
Yeah. They are the final boss, sort of.
In fact, let's hear from the head of the BIS himself as to what their motivation might be. For those of you who were Danger Mouse fans back in the day, I apologise if this gives you Baron Silas flashbacks, but here we go. Let's hear from this guy.
God.
For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
There you go. Absolute control and the ability to enforce it. There you go. There it is.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're talking about here.
Absolute control.
Not the ability for a 17-year-old not to buy a beer or helping strengthen our borders. No, so the money men will have, quote, absolute control and the ability to enforce it. That's what it is.
And I thrown in a couple of links there. But if you
damn them.
If you just start looking at the IMF, FATF and the BIS, they've got dozens of blog posts because they know that nobody reads them. Nobody pays attention to, well, apart from people like me, but nobody pays attention to them. And they just openly say that we want a central bank digital currency. The reason we want it is because it will give us absolute control over the money, but we can't have it until there are digital IDs. So they lean on the people beneath them, the WEFs and the UNs and all the rest of it, and say, we need digital IDs rolled out. I don't care how you get it done. I don't care what excuse you have to give. You get digital IDs done, and then we can start rolling out our central bank digital currencies, and that will give us absolute control. They just don't. They come out and they just say it all the time.
They get their shill whores to do it, like Tony Blair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's all about basically maintaining the status quo of the current financial system because they can see it's all slipping away from them. So, I mean, the voluntary adoption of these things has been awful. McKinsey's did a study because, I mean, it's been rolled out in a whole bunch of countries, these digital IDs like Kenya and a whole bunch of other ones. I think there's been about 10 of them now. About 4 to 10% of the people, when offered these digital IDs, take them. So it's going to be like smart meters all over again. A few people will have them just because of the novelty of it, and the rest of them you'll have to cajole and eventually start threatening until they adopt it.
We'll come round to your house.
Yes.
Or we'll put you under house arrest until you do it.
Yes, quite. Now, people who think that I'm being a little bit overblown about the whole this will lead to a social credit system and total control, I'd just like to point out that not only does China have a social credit system today, but we've actually already had one in this country. We had it very briefly and we had it very half-heartedly. But do you remember at the end of COVID, Boris Johnson was like, okay, now you need a digital thing to be able to go to a nightclub. And they tried to roll it out with nightclubs because they thought that will give them the least pushback. And there was almighty pushback then. And it was just a bit half-hearted, and they just kind of backed off.
A vaccine passport.
A vaccine passport. Yeah, they made the changes that you had to use it to get into a nightclub, and that was going to be their starting point. And if there wasn't the pushback at the time, of course it would have been nightclubs today, and then it would have been the pub, and then
the train. Well, that was the thing. There was one Christmas. I was travelling back and forth between Wiltshire and Essex, and there was one Christmas where they were saying, Boris came on TV saying, you're not going to be able to get on a train without it.
Yep.
And I am not vaccinated. I haven't ever been vaccinated, so I obviously don't have a vaccine passport proving that I've been vaccinated. And I was like, oh, how am I going to travel to Wiltshire and back? And so I started to sort of change things around, started to make plans in case that happened. And then, literally one day, they just said, oh, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, they backed off.
I think in France, maybe in Germany as well, but I think in France they did it.
In Canada they did it.
You couldn't get on a train without a vaccine.
Canada they did it. Yeah, they shut down basically your ability to travel if you didn't have a vaccine passport. So we've already had this. It's simply a question of coming back. And once you've got a digital ID, it's very easy for them to start adding flags and toggling them on and off.
Do
like
whatever
flag.
they want to do, yeah.
Vaccinated or unvaccinated, ability to purchase train tickets or not, ability to do this, ability to go here and do that and that kind of stuff. And especially if you can combine it with the CBDC, you don't even need to worry about people protesting because, there's going to be a big protest in London. Okay, right, what we're going to do is we're going to check the digital IDs of everybody who doesn't live in London, and we're going to turn off the ability to buy a train ticket or parking. If they drive in.
They've got a digital file on you saying you're the type of person likely to cause a disturbance. We think you're the type of person likely to cause a disturbance.
Yeah.
Therefore, your money is switched off.
Yeah, your money's switched
for
off.
a day or whatever, or forever, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or we don't. We think from everything we look at, your digital footprint, we can see everything you click on.
Yes.
We're GCHQ. We're the NSA. We can see everything you click on, and we don't like you.
Yeah.
So we're just going to turn the volume down on your whole life.
Yep.
We're just going to make you silent and dark.
Well, this is the other thing.
And eventually probably not even able to vote. We just won't count your vote or whatever.
Another comment that I got from somebody who is a sensible chap, but I don't think he'd thought this through as much. He was saying, well, I'm not that worried about digital IDs, it's central bank digital currencies when I start to get worried. The reason I think that's wrong is, no, we have to push back here. We have to reject this emphatically now. Mm-hmm. The reason is I don't think they're going to allow a proper big financial crisis, the next one, until they have central bank digital currencies, because that will be the moment where they can roll them out. Because they're not just going to go, oh, here's a central bank digital currency and you have to use this because it gives us absolute control. It will be introduced as something like, step one, it will be, if you're a business, you have to pay your taxes in this. So all the businesses will just go along and do it, and they won't bother the individual citizen at that point. And then, conveniently, there'll be a nice big financial crisis, and they come along and say, oh, would you like a stimulus payment? Yeah, we're going to print a whole load of money. We're going to give most of it to ourselves, of course, but we're going to give some of it to you. So here's a few grand, but we need to make sure that it's secure and convenient, and the data's safe and all that kind of stuff. So you can only,
it's for your safety and convenience.
So you can only access this if you sign up for a central bank digital currency account. And how many people are not going to then go, oh yeah, I'm not going to get my 2, 5, 10 grand, whatever it is. Everybody's going to sign up for a central bank digital currency then, and then we're going to come out the other side and it's going to be like, oh look, everybody's already got a CBDC wallet tied to their digital ID. Oh yeah, we're just going to phase out cash now, and traditional bank accounts, and then they've got us. Yeah. End of freedom at that point. There's not a damn thing we can do at that point. And it's coming, and people are not alarmed enough about how bad this is going to get for them.
Yeah. Well, they've still got I Am a Celebrity, haven't they? They've still got football.
Yeah. Oh, the masses will go for it.
They've still got very, very expensive beer. So
yeah. Yeah, the masses
still order Papa John's.
The masses will go for it. The only other thing I would say is I do actually think there is a case for having a form of digital ID in this digital world, but it cannot be a government-issued one. I don't even want it to be a big tech-issued one. Now, I wanted to very briefly mention, people can go away and look into this if they want to, but there are things called zero-knowledge proofs, which is basically a blockchain alternative to a digital ID. And essentially you can hash information to the blockchain and it can then be verified as true, and you can basically verify whether a statement is true or not without revealing the underlying data. So the way to think about this is, at the moment, let's say you're trying to get into a nightclub and you're a 19-year-old girl, you need to show the bouncer your driving license with your address on it in order to get in or not. You know, with a zero knowledge proof, you'll be the one adding information to the hashes. You might want to get some of them verified by an official source, like, you know, I own this house and therefore the land registry adds their digital signature to it. But you can basically have your pot of knowledge, and then the bouncer can just ask, were you born on or before a certain date, and it will be able to give a verified or not. The zero knowledge proofs are the way to go, and it gives all of the benefits that they claim that they are doing a digital ID for, but it gives them none of the control. It gives us total control. Okay. So zero knowledge proofs are the way to go. We don't need digital IDs, and actually they need digital IDs because they want to enslave us, and they will if they can get away with it if we don't push back now and reject this shit.
Look at that BIS chief. What a disgusting...
You remember
slob.
Baron Silas?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. It's him, isn't it?
Yeah. He does look like him, yeah. Yeah.
Control.
What a toad.
Yeah, they mean to enslave us.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
Subscription for someone that you know and love and you think they would enjoy our work, and go and watch Harry's latest breakdown on the career of Stanley Kubrick, who is of course a fascinating filmmaker and a person with a strange mystique surrounding him, and Harry does a really amazing job of laying out exactly how and why he gained this kind of reputation. And then go and follow us on X for all the latest updates of what we're doing.